I came back to consciousness because someone kept repeating my name like they were afraid I would forget it. At first, I thought it was my manager. Then I realized it was a nurse leaning over me, adjusting something near my shoulder while a heart monitor clicked beside my bed with patient, mechanical certainty. The first thing I asked was whether I had missed my shift. She gave me a look that was almost kind. "You collapsed on the warehouse floor." I remember the concrete more than the pain. Cold against my cheek. The sound of a pallet jack stopping somewhere nearby. A coworker saying not loudly, "Don't move him." By evening, they had run enough tests to decide I needed to stay overnight. Severe dehydration, blood pressure dangerously low, and arrhythmia they wanted to monitor because apparently my body had chosen a dramatic way to object to months of overtime and skipped meals. A doctor asked if there was family to call. I gave him my father's number because habit is stronger than judgment. Around sunset, I asked if anyone had answered. They did. The nurse said while checking the IV line. We left the room number. No one came. I watched the door longer than I wanted to admit. Every set of footsteps in the hallway made me look up. Around 9, my phone buzzed on the tray table. One notification. My sister had tagged me in a photo. She, my parents, and 2 cousins sat around a restaurant table I recognized immediately because my mother liked posting from there whenever they wanted things to look cheerful. My sister was smiling into the camera, my father half looking away, my mother holding up a glass. The caption said "Family Day without the drama." I stared at it long enough for the screen to dim. Then I locked the phone and set it face down. The strange thing was that it didn't even feel new, just cleaner than usual, less hidden. When people finally stop pretending, disappointment becomes easier to sort. The next 2 days passed in small interruptions, blood pressure checks, questions about dizziness, a cardiologist explaining that stress had likely pushed an already ignored condition into something visible. My supervisor came before my family did. He stood awkwardly near the bed, holding a paper cup of tea he clearly bought from the hospital machine. "You scared everyone," he said. I almost apologized. Instead, I asked if work had covered my shift. He nodded. "Don't think about that." Before leaving, he hesitated. HR asked if there's anyone else listed for emergency contact. "Your father didn't answer when we called again." That part surprised me only because I knew he had his phone. He always had his phone. I told him I'd update it later. On the 3rd morning, I woke to my phone vibrating against the tray hard enough to rattle the plastic cup beside it. 74 missed calls, mostly from my father, a few from my mother. 3 from my sister, and 1 text, "We need you, answer immediately." Not "how are you," not "call when you can," just urgency capitalized. For a moment, I almost answered out of reflex. That old automatic response, whatever happened, fix it first, think later. But my hand stopped halfway. I read the message again. A minute later, another came. "Call now. It's serious." I finally pressed call. My father answered before the first ring ended. "Where have you been?" No greeting, no hesitation. "I'm in the hospital." Silence. Then, "Listen, your mother signed something she shouldn't have. The bank froze the transfer. They need your ID because your salary account is linked to the guarantor file." I said nothing. His voice sharpened. "Are you listening?" I looked at the monitor beside me. "Yes, we're at the branch now. Come immediately." I almost laughed, but I was too tired. "I can't leave." "What do you mean you can't leave?" I'm attached to 3 machines. He exhaled like I was being difficult on purpose. "This is important." The nurse entered while he was still talking and saw my expression. She checked the screen near my bed, then lowered her voice. "Everything okay?" I held up 1 finger and listened while my father explained how urgently they needed me, how the manager would only release the paperwork if I signed in person, how my sister had already waited 2 hours. Not once did he ask why I was admitted. I handed the phone to the nurse before I could overthink it. She blinked, then took it. "This is the cardiac ward," she said calmly. "He is not being discharged today. I could hear my father speaking loudly enough through the speaker for her to move the phone slightly away. "No, sir," she said, still calm. "He cannot come sign anything today. If you need documentation, speak to administration downstairs." She ended the call before he finished. A few minutes later, the floor administrator arrived because apparently my father had called the main desk and demanded an exception. The administrator, a tired man in glasses, listened to the summary, checked my chart, and asked one simple question. "Do you authorize visitors?" I thought about the photo, the caption, "The empty doorway for 3 days." "No," I said. He nodded once, wrote something on a clipboard, and that was the end of it. My father arrived anyway an hour later. I didn't see him, but I heard his voice outside the corridor, louder than necessary, insisting he only needed 5 minutes. The administrator repeated something firm enough that the argument ended. Silence returned. That afternoon, my sister texted, "You could have warned us you were in hospital." I looked at that for a long time. Then I typed "no accusation." No extra line, just fact. The next morning, my supervisor came back with forms for updated emergency contact details. I put my own name first. When I was discharged 2 days later, my father called again. This time I answered. He started explaining the bank issue before I interrupted him. "I'll send the document they need by email," I said, "but I'm not coming there today." A pause. Then, suspiciously, "Why?" Because I finally understood something simple. Every crisis in that house became mine because I never allowed it to remain theirs. "I need rest," I said. It sounded ordinary, almost small. But for the first time, I meant it enough not to apologize. He didn't argue. Maybe because there was nothing dramatic left to push against. After we hung up, I sat on the edge of my bed at home and listened to the quiet. It didn't feel like victory, just unfamiliar space where urgency used to live.